Guys, welcome to the show. Today we've got Justin Erhart of Premium Hunts. We're going to be talking about New Mexico hunting. We're going to talk about the regulations. We've got a deadline coming up here March 18th. Before we get to that, I want to thank you guys, the listeners of this podcast. I want to remind you, if you guys have any questions of me, you can send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. You can send me a direct message also on Instagram at jscottoutdoors. I love interacting with you guys. I want to thank you for your avid support of this podcast. I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com Insider. The Insider is the best Western hunting resource and tool available to Western hunters applying in all these different states. If you want the most accurate draw odds and harvest statistics and helping you apply for these hunts, go to GoHunt.com/JScott. Just for signing up, you're going to get a $50 GoHunt Gear Shop gift card. I also want to thank GoHunt, my friends Cody Nelson over at the optics department. He's the optics manager in the gear shop there. Cody talks everything glassing. I call him the glassing guru. If you have any optics needs at all, if you're looking to buy binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, rangefinders, tripods, anything to do with glassing, give Cody a call, 702-847-8747. That's extension 2, or you can you can text him at 602-399-3699. You can also give him a call. That is his cell phone. Give him a call. He does a great job with customer service. Make sure to mention J. Scott Outdoors. I want to thank GoHunt for their sponsorship. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. Go to KUIU.com, KUIU Ultralight Hunting. That is the gear that I've worn on all of my hunts since 2010. Best ultralight hunting gear on the market. I also want to thank Phonescope.com. Use the JScott20 promo code. You're going to save a 10% discount there. Thanks to OnXMaps.com. Use the JScott20 promo code at OnXMaps.com. It's going to save you 20%. OnX Maps, I use it every day, hunting, fishing, and in my real estate business. They've got a great public-private land overlay. They've got a great tracking system so you know where you're at all times. You're able to toggle back and forth between topo and aerial. And there's also a hybrid mode. You can import-export out of Google Earth. It's just an awesome tool. Go to onxmaps.com. Use the JScott20 promo code. It's going to save you 20%. I also want to announce a new sponsor of the podcast. This spring, I'm going to be using Apex ammunition. I'm going to be using the Tungsten Super Shot. That's the TSS for you turkey hunters and waterfowlers and upland game bird hunters. You've obviously already heard probably a lot about the TSS, the Tungsten Super Shot. They're using a much smaller shot, lots of velocity out of these shotguns, and tungsten is a much denser, much harder, heavier product, and you're able to get a lot more pellets in the kill zone. So go to apexmunition.com to find out more. I want to thank Apex for their new sponsorship of this podcast. Guys, let's get right to this episode with Justin Erhart, and don't forget the March 18th deadline in New Mexico.
Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got my friend Justin Erhart of Premium Hunts. Justin, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Jay?
Good. Well, the credit cards in Arizona have been hit. No one really knows which units exactly they have, but I'm sure your phone's been ringing. How's it looking there for Unit 1 and 27?
It's looking good. It's we just got a little tiny bit more moisture yesterday, so every little bit helps at this point.
We're kind of in that period where, the cards have already been hit, and then people are trying to decide, what units they have and which direction they're going, and it's always an exciting time. We talked previously on the podcast about the importance of having, a couple years back-to-back of good moisture. You're still fully anticipating, if everything stays the same, 27-1 having another good antler growth year, right?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we've had a phenomenal amount of moisture this winter already, so anything we get in this early part of spring is just going to be icing on the cake. So I'm really anticipating a pretty good horn growth here.
You know, your success, well, your success for a long time has been, I've been tracking it, but you guys had a great successful year last year in 1 and 27 with your elk hunters, both on the early and the late, and it seems like you guys really can dig up those really good bulls. How much of that is just persistence and staying after it, and how much of it is, you know, being born and raised there and really knowing the country?
Definitely both factors are going to play into the success. I mean, you know, there's, to this day, I've been born and raised right here, and there's still something new to learn every year, whether it's a new little pocket of elk or some unknown water feature, you know, something. There's always something new to benefit from, but definitely, you know, the persistence part plays a big role. You know, we're out in the field all year long, and it dang sure helps out.
For sure. So, you know, obviously last year, 1 and 27, they're not as affected by kind of a lackluster rut. If you know, if it gets dry, you throw in, you know, 2 years of wet moisture. Let's say we have continued good spring moisture and good, you know, early summer monsoons. The rut could just be crazy this year in 1 and 27, couldn't it?
It very well could be. The only thing, you know, the dates are kind of rolled back to that earlier stage. I believe they're starting on the 12th this year, so that plays a small role into it. So the first few days might be, you know, a little slower than normal, but, you know, once they get fired up, it should be a really good year.
For sure. Today, let's shift gears a little bit. Today we're going to talk about New Mexico and living right there, Springerville, Eager area, right there basically on the border of New Mexico. You also do a lot of hunting over in New Mexico. Talk about your thoughts on the conditions over in New Mexico.
You know, New Mexico has been getting a lot of the same moisture that we have been seeing right here in Units 1 and 27 of Arizona. So basically, I mean, all the country that we hunt in either state adjoins or dang near adjoins, and a lot of the storms have hit Arizona and New Mexico both, and it's looking pretty dang good over there as well, Jay.
When you're talking elk in New Mexico, you know, what would be your favorite units? You know, if you could, you know, have the choice to hunt your top, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, what would be at the top of the heap?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would say that's going to change year to year for me personally. Obviously, some of the 16s are great, but there's some other units that are really good. You know, 12, 13, 18. There's dang sure some really good hunts over there. But as far as my favorite, man, that could change annually depending on moisture.
When you're looking at 16A and 16D, which are, you know, historically two of the units that get talked about probably the most in New Mexico, what in your mind differentiates those two units?
They obviously have a little bit better management. You know, there's fewer tags issued on those hunts. They don't have a November season bull hunt, so you know, you're basically subject to the mobility impaired hunts and the 2 hunts in October that are the general hunts, as well as the bow hunts in September. But without a November hunt, you know, you're saving a lot of bulls that way. And then plus the hunts that are there, they're very limited tags, so you just get a higher age class from year to year.
Gotcha. Now, talk a little bit about, you know, the landowner tags, applying with an outfitter, how the percentage works in New Mexico because of the breakdown. If you don't apply with an outfitter, your odds are much more difficult if you don't go with an outfitter. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. So a minimum of 84% of the tags are going to be issued to the residents of New Mexico, and then up to 10%, which is a new wording this year, up to 10% will be allowed to go to people who apply through an outfitter, and then up to 6% are issued to non-residents who do not apply through an outfitter.
And
so
go ahead.
I was just going to say those new wordings that they put on there definitely changed a few hunts for this year. There's hunts that guys could put on their application and they won't even have a shot at drawing.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, for instance, if you've got a hunt that, say, for instance, the Unit 18 rifle hunt, it's October 1st through the 5th, there's 10 tags issued on it. If you have a non-resident applying for that hunt who is not contracted through an outfitter, he is not even going to have a shot at drawing one of those permits, because there's the allocations are up to 6% would be able to be drawn in that hunt, where obviously it's going to have to be in the outfitted pool because it's up to 10%. So one of those tags will be issued to the outfitter pool, and the other 9 will go to the New Mexico residents.
Okay. Interesting. I'm looking at GoHunt.com Insider, and I'm looking at Unit 18, the first archery hunt, the 1st through the 14th. It's a 33% draw if you put in with an outfitter. Looks like there's 3 tags there to draw, and there were 9 applicants for that hunt. You like that Unit 18?
Yeah, it can be good. It's definitely not your typical elk hunt or elk country. It's the more arid desert area. Densities are low. There's lots of private land to navigate around, but there's some great bulls to be had there. There's obviously not going to be many elk, but it can be a really good hunt.
When you're comparing Unit 1 and 27, and then you literally drive 30 minutes the other way and go into some of these units in New Mexico, comparing elk from state to state, everything I've heard, I have limited experience in New Mexico myself hunting, but everything that I've heard is the New Mexico elk can be a little bit more finicky, not quite as vocal. Do you see that, or do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, in most of the areas, that's how it is, and I would pretty much bet that that's based upon the pressure that they get throughout the year. They get a lot more hunts lined back to back to back in New Mexico, so the elk are obviously going to be more pressured, and we all know what that extra pressure does to the elk that time of year.
What about Unit 23? I hear a lot about that unit over there in New Mexico. I'm just curious your thoughts on, being fairly close to where you live, your thoughts on that.
23 is one of those units that can be really good. It could hold a giant. It pumps out some nice bulls, but it is not an easy hunt. It's a tough hunt, whether you're in the archery season, the muzzleloader season, or the rifle season. It's a tough unit to hunt. It does border Unit 27 in Arizona, but it is a night and day different world. But it holds big bulls, but not many.
New Mexico on a whole, wouldn't you agree? I mean, it can kick out every bit as big a bull as anything in Arizona at any given time, right? I mean, if it has good moisture, the genetics are there, and it can produce a giant bull.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, it's not as common as it was 10, 15 years ago, obviously, but there are dang sure some really good bulls in New Mexico, and they may pop up in some oddball areas.
Your premium hunts, you guys obviously focus in Arizona and New Mexico. is it subject to the amount of hunters that you draw in each? Depends on how many hunts you are doing in each state, or is it, does it vary from year to year, or is it pretty consistent?
No, it varies year to year quite a bit because for the most part, we're subject to the draw. So Arizona, obviously, it's all based upon the draw, who calls on what year. New Mexico, we do have some landowner tags that we can create hunts on. We don't do it to stay busy. We just, we'll do a handful of guys on landowner tags each year. But for the most part, in New Mexico, we're also subject to the draw. So some years we may have a season date where we're pretty busy, and the next year we may not have anybody. So you never really know.
Do you have much experience in 16B, which I believe is the wilderness hunt over there in the Gila?
Yeah, we've hunted B quite a bit. We kind of went away from B for quite a few years, and then we started slowly coming back to it. We started hunting B back in probably 2002, 2003. We hunted it heavy for, probably about 6 years, and then we kind of got away from it for a while there, and this past year we started going back into it.
The New Mexico hunts, is it common for you to use your stock, horses and mules, or are you primarily hunting, out of ATVs, trucks, Rangers, that type of thing?
For the most part, that's how we're going to be hunting is getting from A to B, on vehicles, and then hunting on foot throughout the day. We'd use our animals for a lot of pack outs. Last year I believe we only packed in on horseback for one hunt, and that was actually a Unit 16B hunt that we packed in on, and it was a good hunt. We killed a nice bull on it.
The thing is, though, with you, when you say nice bull, sometimes that could be like a 390 monster, and you're kind of downplaying it and saying nice bull. So it's a little when I do podcasts with you and when I talk to you on the phone outside of the podcast, I always have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt, because you'll be like, yeah, we shot a nice buck, and and then you send me a picture and I'm like drooling all over myself. I'm like, dude, you didn't tell me it was a giant. Let's talk a little bit about... B is
definitely one of those areas where a bull like that could show up, but you just never know. Like we were saying earlier, in New Mexico, you could run into a giant anywhere, even in a unit that you feel's overhunted. Year to year, there's going to be a big bull in most of those units somewhere.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the deer in New Mexico. I know the mule deer, overall is pretty rough over there, but talk about your deer hunts in New Mexico and, whether you focus more on coos or mule deer.
Jay, for the most part, you're right. New Mexico's taken a pretty bad turn for the mule deer. There are some decent hunts that can pump out some giant bucks, but generally we don't hunt many of those areas. There's a couple that, we still do hunt, but it's a tough game in New Mexico for, a high caliber mule deer. We do some coos deer hunting over there as well. There's some good coos in New Mexico. We hunt Unit 23. We hunt the Burro Mountains unit in Unit 23 and Unit 27. They can all be pretty solid.
Do you feel like the New Mexico coos deer, it's a little bit overshadowed by Arizona, and actually there's some sneaky quality there in New Mexico if you know the right places to go?
Oh, no doubt. It's hard to compete with, obviously, Arizona and Mexico, but there are some great bucks in New Mexico to be had.
And then you do a lot of exotics, a lot of different hunts. Talk about all of the different variety of hunts that you do over there in New Mexico.
Yeah, so in New Mexico, you obviously you're going to have your elk, deer, antelope, For anybody who's not familiar with New Mexico, they also have free-ranging Barbary sheep, ibex, oryx, and they offer hunts for all of these species. And they're great hunts. They're fun. The game is pretty plentiful, and they're a good time.
The ibex hunt specifically, they've got archery, they've got rifle, they've got some different tags. Talk a little bit about that mountain range and the level of difficulty of that hunt.
That hunt can be extremely difficult, especially if you're talking about the archery hunt. So anybody who ever has even attempted to archery hunt the Florida mountains for ibex, they've learned a thing or two, and they've probably had their butt kicked a handful of times. It's definitely not an easy hunt. I think the success rates are 1 to 2%, and it can be a grind. But ibex with the muzzleloader and rifle, obviously it's going to be a little easier because you can take a poke at them from a ways out. But it's still not an easy feat. I mean, it's a big, nasty mountain range.
Once the rifle seasons kick in, is the success rate as far as the harvest rate for you guys a lot better, just because of the ability to not have to be 50 yards or closer?
Definitely.
Those ibex, they spend all their time on the mountain, right? So I mean, you go around the perimeter and look up at them, or do you get up on the mountain with them?
We'll do a little bit of both. Generally, we'll like to keep a guy or two down in the valley floor and really tearing apart the faces of the mountain and everything. But it's also really great to have guys up on top too, because you can see country that you can't from the bottom.
Those ibex, what's the quality like as far as the length of horns? And over the years they've been getting hunted a lot. How has the quality survived?
It survived, but it's dang sure gone downhill, Jay. I mean, back in the day, you used to get world-class ibex out of there on a pretty regular basis, and nowadays, you're not getting as high a quality. Obviously, I mean, they've done a lot of nanny hunts and everything, and it's just taken a beating on the herd.
But still, if it's something that you would definitely tell guys put in for, it's just you're not going to shoot the giant billies that they were shooting years ago.
Right, and it's a great hunt, especially for somebody who's looking to put it on their list and not have to travel overseas or anything like that. It's probably the only place you can do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Oryx hunts. I know you do a bunch of those Oryx hunts as well.
Yeah, the Oryx hunts are great. They have a handful of different hunts. They have hunts, on the White Sands Missile Range, and then they have some hunts that are off-range tags as well. We generally like to focus on the hunts that are within the White Sands Missile Range. They're good hunts, game's plentiful. They are short hunts, 3-day hunts. By the time you get your orientation and everything done, you're pretty much getting 2.5 days of hunting. So they're short, but usually sweet hunts.
I hear you do the orientation and then the gates open and then off you go, and it's like right out of a Western. Yeah,
as soon as orientation's over and you're released, man, it's a free-for-all. There's trucks trying to pull out and get to certain areas first, and it becomes a little bit of a rat race for those first few minutes. But it's once everybody spreads out and kind of gets away, it's really a fun hunt.
What about the Barbary sheep?
Another great hunt. We like to call it the poor man's sheep hunting, but it's fun hunting. You're hunting them in rough country. You get to see kind of how they interact and everything. Some great rams to be had as well. I mean, obviously, there's a lot bigger rams on the Texas side, but New Mexico has some great rams. You know, we usually kill rams from 28 to 32 inches in New Mexico.
We're moving down the list here. You guys also do bighorn sheep. Do you do both desert and rocky hunts?
Yes, we do. We don't do them in all areas. We do them in a handful of areas for each. But there's obviously some great rams, and obviously some of those areas that we don't hunt are fantastic as well. We just don't have the time to get over there and learn every unit, you know.
Yeah, so you have specific units that you kind of cherry pick, and that's where you put your hunters in for?
Correct, and it's a great unit to apply. I mean, if anybody's considering sheep as a bucket list animal or trying to complete a slam, New Mexico is a must-apply state because there is no point system, and you could potentially draw the very first year you apply.
Yeah. What about your own personal hunting in New Mexico? Have you been fortunate and drawn many elk or any of these animals we're talking about?
You know, I've had a couple elk tags in New Mexico, piles of deer tags in subpar units. I did draw my Oryx once in a lifetime, but I've yet to draw personally for ibex sheep or Barbary sheep. Still waiting.
Gotcha. Do you guys mess at all with any of the bear hunting? Do you do much bear hunting in general?
No, we don't, Jay. It's nothing that really has ever struck our interest, and we just kind of stay away from it.
You're not bear hunting because you're too busy thinking about turkeys?
Yeah, the turkeys never really have gone on my radar either. It's just,
Come on.
Never gotten the turkey bug.
Come on.
Guess I'll have to see what one of those Gold's turkey hunts is all about someday. But
unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're one of those that just doesn't do anything for you. It's got to have antlers or horns for you to be excited?
No, it's just something I've never done. I mean, that's kind of how I would look at it right now, but everybody tells me as soon as you try it once, you're going to be hooked, and it's just something I've never done.
Gotcha. I assume you do see quite a few turkeys over in New Mexico and Arizona, huh?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we see gobs of them.
Where more, in New Mexico or Arizona?
Arizona, we see more of them.
Really? 27 or 1?
You know, it seems like we see more in 1, but it seems like the bigger turkeys are always in 27.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if that's how it is, or if it's just the areas that I end up in 27 and they're just older birds. I have no idea.
Huh. Got to get you into that turkey hunting. You're too busy, though.
Yeah, I'm going to have to keep my focus on the elk and deer and everything else.
What about shed hunting? That's about to kick off here. Do you do a lot of shed hunting?
You know, we do quite a bit. Obviously, you know, not as much as we used to. My wife would probably kill me if I rolled right out of hunting season and then hit the sheds as hard as I would like to, but from time to time we'll get out and beat up the hills, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. I think I'm out a lot, and I got back from Mexico or something, and I was like texting you, where are you at? And you're like, oh, I'm headed off to go scout for ibex, this and that. And I'm like, dude, you've only been home 2 days. You were in Mexico like 18 days, and you're off again to the wild beyond. Unreal.
Right. Yeah, my wife puts up with a lot. It's pretty good, but
you push the limit?
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of Mexico, you've gone down now 2 years with me down there, and just haven't really hit it just perfect. I mean, you guys have shot some good bucks, and you just kind of had one thing or another just not be in the right place at the right time, but you're bound to here one of these days. What do you think about the country down there?
Man, Jay, I love it down there. I mean, it's just a blast. It's a great time. it's a good way for, me and some of the guys to go down and just kind of unwind. It's the country's phenomenal. I mean, obviously, the areas we've been in the desert floors to the high mountains, and I've loved every minute of each place. So
it is nice to be able to go to a place and you do have a feeling that you're not in some place that's just been completely trampled down. I mean, there's some very wild feelings to a lot of that country, isn't there?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I mean, from going from the public land in Arizona and New Mexico to you go down there and you get on a ranch and you don't see a foot track, you don't see any other people, you just, from time to time you might find an old horseshoe laying on the hillside, but that's about all you're gonna see for people sign. It's a blast.
Yeah, I know. This last year you guys ended up spending about twice as much time as you did the year before, and I have a feeling this coming year you'll do the same. But it's just one of those places that's got a real wild feel. I mean, and I'm not talking about anything other than once you get on these ranches and they're big, vast, big country, rough country, and it's just got a great feel to it. And I'm so fortunate. Last year was my 24th season down there, and it's definitely one of those hunts that I hope I never have to miss, and always look forward to it. It's funny, I'm back for 2 or 3 days, and then all of a sudden I'm right back to thinking, okay, where are we going next year, and what ranches, and trying to get everything lined out, and it's just one of those things that gets in your blood for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, last year, obviously my first year, I went down and did the trip down to Mexico, and I was pretty skeptical, to be honest. Waiting, you hear so many horror stories and stuff like that, and it's just, we've never had an issue. The way you organize it and everything's great, and once you're down there and set up, it's the people on the ranch, they've all been great to us.
Yeah, it's a good time for sure. All right, as far as New Mexico application, I believe we have a deadline of the 18th. So, we're about a little over 2 weeks out. I want to give you a chance to let people know how they can get a hold of you and put in for these New Mexico hunts.
Guys can call me anytime. My number's 928-245-8722. They could also text me on that number. They can email me at info@premiumhunts.com. They can also find us on Instagram, premium_hunts. Find us on Facebook, Premium Hunts. Any of those outlets would be a good way to contact us.
For sure. Your Instagram, premium_hunts, for those people out there, go and give those guys a follow. They have a phenomenal page. The content on the page with the giant bulls and some of these videos and stuff. Talking to you, Justin, you're real low key, kind of just, easy going. You can tell. I know you're intense and all of that, but you're just easy going, talking to on the phone. And, when I follow your page, it's nice just to follow, just, you're not pushing and you're just posting great content and big giant bulls and all kinds of stuff. So my hat's off to you for that hard work that you and your guides put in, for sure. And look forward to Mexico next year, and I think your number's about to be called for a big giant buck down there.
Man, I hope so. I'm due.
Yeah, I know you are. Sounds good. Well, God bless, buddy. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's always great talking to you. And again, I encourage the listeners to follow you on Instagram and reach out to Justin if you're interested in those New Mexico hunts.
Real quick, Jay, I'd like to offer anybody who books a hunt with us in Arizona or New Mexico, I'm going to offer them a $250 discount for anybody who mentions the code JSO 2020. So
awesome.
That's something to offer your podcast listeners and hopefully give us a few more calls.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. I appreciate you doing that for the listeners. That's really cool. All right, man. Well, God bless, and I'll be chatting at you. Let's keep this rain coming, and hopefully we'll know here maybe by the end of the week, what these credit card hits are and who got exact what units in Arizona, and hopefully you get booked up in New Mexico, get a bunch of calls, and get some applicants in, and get some great hunters. So I always enjoyed talking to you. Okay.
All right, Jay. Thanks a lot. Take care.